Hello, hosts and travelers. Welcome to the podcast Hosting Your Home. Each day around the world, millions of guests stay in other people's homes using the Airbnb platform. Debbie Herdert looks for stories that come from these connections to share them with you. Now listen in as we hear stories that teach us the human side of hosting your home.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Hosting Your Home. Before we start our episode today, I wanted to just take a few minutes to have a little chat with you and tell you about where we are with our Hosting Your Home adventure. When Rob and I started this in late April, we weren't really sure that we were going to be any good at it or that we would like it. And now 3.5 months later, we're discovering that, we really do like this. This is fun. I didn't know if I would be a good podcaster. I'm not saying that I'm really great because there's a big learning curve here, but I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. And Rob, in his role as the, air quote, all-powerful editor, is actually doing very well with his time commitment and his editing process. He still labors over it quite a bit. It takes a long time, and he's a perfectionist. So I'm hoping that as we continue on, maybe he will become less of a perfectionist and allow more of my ums and ers and banging out there. But for now, I'm just really, really tickled that he is interested in continuing this with me because this is really fun. The other thing is that we didn't know was whether our topics and our people would dry up, our source of information. And what we have discovered is that not only is there a wealth of topics and people and resources out there, but the podcasts themselves are sort of organically organizing themselves into groups. So we have our Nuts and Bolts series, and we have new host consulting episodes. We have panel discussions, and eventually we will be having some Airbnb staff interviews, which I think will be really great. We have the Portland headquarters here and some staff people that we've been working with who have agreed to allow us to have a chat with them. So I'm really looking forward to that too. And the biggest thing, of course, is we didn't know if we would have listeners. We didn't know if there would be anybody really interested in hearing what we have to say. And now, 3.5 months later, we've just passed 2,000 downloads. So, I had no expectations, but this is just so cool. Really, really glad to know that you're downloading the episodes. We don't really know that you're listening to them because we don't have any way of gauging that unless you tell us. And so we are really enjoying the comments too. That means a lot to us. And as we move on, if you have topics or points of interest that you would like to hear about, we'd like to hear from you. And if you want to tell your story, or if you know of an amazing host whose story needs to be told, please let us know. At the end of this podcast, at the bottom of the show will be contact information, and we would really love to hear from you. So if there's anything that you want from us, please let us know. In today's episode, our guest is Kim Cumbo, who is a superhost in the Lads Edition area of Portland. Kim brings many experiences to the Airbnb table. She has been a birthing coach, she's taught parenting classes, she's a Reiki practitioner, she teaches laughter yoga, and she offers herself as a coach for divorce resiliency. Fred, her husband, is a jazz musician, and he plays saxophone. Kim and I had this great conversation about how she runs her business and the importance of her personal profile. We talked about her website and what that does for her, and how her history draws certain guests to her home. And then we also discussed a very interesting discussion about cultural differences and some of the issues that she's confronted. If you hang out until the end of the podcast, until after the closing remarks, you will also hear us walking through her property. We didn't put it actually within the program because it's kind of noisy. You know, we're clomping up steps and opening doors and various things like that. But if you want to hear us as we go through and view her home, hang out till the end of that. I hope you enjoy this episode. It was a lot of fun to do. Okay, tell me how you started. I would love to hear your story.
I went to a Soul Collage Facilitators Conference in Boston, Massachusetts in the fall of 2011, and I was talking with a mentor about how I wanted to leave Oregon Health Sciences University. And she said, "You guys have a great house, host on Airbnb." Well, my stepson was in the midst of graduating high school. Mm-hmm. And so Fred and I talked about it, and we had planned that after he had gone to Eugene for the summer, where he was going to go to school in the fall, that we would turn the one room into an Airbnb. So we just opened the second room last summer.
Okay.
Around this time.
Okay.
So we had the green room, and we had to do a lot of work on that room. My son and daughter-in-law took off the wallpaper and found mold. Ooh. And then cracks in the wall, and they tried to patch it, and it was not pretty. So we had it professionally redone and painted. And it was just kind of a natural progression. Airbnb does a great job with communication, and with Fred doing his job, communication is a high value. With my job, working for OHSU, and then as a life coach, communication is also a huge value. So when I found how easy the website was and how communicative and supportive they were, it was like, okay, we're going to do this, and this is going to be good. We started October 18th, 2012. And we had a lovely little family with a little 2-month-old baby for our first weekend. Mm-hmm. And they were all concerned about the baby crying. And I said, well, I've got this little nook office, so if she starts crying in the night, you can just take her down there and we won't hear a thing. But the baby slept all night. I brought up the cradle that my son had used when he was born. Oh. And they had never put their baby in a cradle.
The baby had been in their own bed?
No. The baby had been sleeping in a car seat since it was born.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Because they were afraid to lay the baby down on its back. Oh. And they're like, she slept all night. I'm like, well, you might want to consider giving this a try. So that was really, really sweet. And then our next guest showed up. We were getting ready for a Halloween party. It was a week later. And I was dressed as a lion. I mean, we were literally, guests were coming to the door, and I get this little knock on the door, and these two little women, one older and one younger, I open the door, and they both step back from the door. I'm like, what is this? And they're like, we saw your house on Airbnb, and we've been driving around the neighborhood until we saw the Easter Island man. So we figured it's the same house. Right? You have an Airbnb? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, my mom would like to come for a month, but she'd like to see it before she commits.
And they just knocked on your door?
Yeah.
Oh, for heaven's sake. And they don't have addresses on Airbnb.
No, but they
had to do it from the picture.
Yeah, they knew we were in Ladd's Addition, so they've just been driving around Ladd's Addition looking for the house.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so that was pretty funny. And so they said, can we have a tour? I'm like, okay, sure.
The lion was
as a lion, right. And, people dressed similarly are showing up. I'm like waving. And so I show them the room, and she's like, oh, I'd love to stay here. So I said, okay, this is what you have to do. I had to walk her through the process. And it was a process to get, because they're like retired from Salem lawyers. She's about 70. But a young 70. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, they stayed for a month, or she stayed for a month. Her husband and she were having a month separation to see what they wanted to do next with their life. So he would come.
At 70.
At 70.
Isn't that something?
And so he would come and pick her up for a date. He'd bring flowers.
Oh.
And she brought her goldfish with her
Oh my goodness.
in the room. And then I came home one day after work and she said, I've done something. I'm like, oh? And she's like, yeah, it's a good thing. I think you'll like it. I'm like, oh, okay. So we go upstairs and she'd bought me a new shower curtain and a new bath mat.
Oh my
And she'd
gosh.
rearranged Miles' old room. I'm like, wow, that's really nice. She's like, you guys are so great. I just wanted to do something for you and for the house. So she was lovely. We saw them a few more times socially.
Mm-hmm. What a great intro.
Yeah, so that was, and we're like, whoa, this is pretty cool.
Uh-huh.
And then December and January were really dead. So we're like, well, maybe this won't work as quite as well as we thought. But it picked up in mid-February.
So since 2011, that means you've been doing this
No, 2012.
2012, okay.
Yeah, I learned about it in 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're a 5-year veteran.
Well, it'll be 4 in October.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Oh, that's right. I'm back to 2011.
11,
Sorry.
I know, that's the date that's stuck.
My brain.
So it's been a lot of fun, and we've hosted pregnant people, and I was a former midwife years ago, and so I was kind of giving him a little birth class because the baby was due in like a few weeks, and he was very, very nervous, and so it was kind of fun. And I don't know, we've just had a lot of really cool experiences with our guests.
Yeah, I think that's interesting with your divorce counseling and your, you said you worked at OHSU in the birth center?
Well,
right?
not in the birth center. I worked as medical reception and medical assisting for the homeless and the indigent. I was a lay home birth midwife for 20 years in Portland, but not in the hospital. So I did home births at home.
Wow.
So I worked at the birth home, the Milwaukee Birth Center, the Natural Childbirth and Birth Center out on 122nd. I did water births, normal births. I did lots of vaginal births after C-section. So yeah, it was a great time.
It's interesting to me that two of your guests were in that kind of field that you worked in too. Does that happen a lot? Do you find that you attract those kinds of people?
Yeah, actually in November we attracted a woman who was applying for the nurse midwifery program at OHSU. And they mentioned in their ad, well, the reason we're coming is because we're a midwife, and I'd like to talk to you, and you work for OHSU, and I'd like to talk to you about your experience with OHSU. Yeah. We get a lot of jazz music, well, a lot. We've gotten 3 professional jazz musicians.
Because your husband plays saxophone.
So that's why we have a very long listing. We have a very long, detailed description of us and who we are. And I've had people come because of my Reiki. We've had people come because of Fred's dietary issues, so that they can, because
you're gluten-free and dairy-free,
right? And also we get a lot of people because we have not a single pet. Tons of people because we have no pets.
Oh, interesting.
We had goldfish after Lane left. I got Fred goldfish, but then we each took turns killing them by forgetting to dechlorinate the water, and we were like, even goldfish dying, that's traumatic. So we said, okay, I think we're done with pets. And Fred actually, last weekend, I said, bring me something back from Saturday Market, because he was buying a wedding gift. And he bought me this little ceramic cat. He's like, here's your token cat.
Oh, furless.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So so far, what do you think has been your best experience with hosting?
My best experience? You mean an actual couple or the overall reason why we do it?
Well, I'd like to hear both, actually.
Okay. Oh, geez, there's so many stories.
Yeah, I can tell there's a bunch of them there under the surface. It's like...
Well, okay,
It's one to pull
so
out.
I've made friends. You know, I think that the overall thing is we attract amazing people. Amazing people. And I've made 3 or 4 friends. Good friends. And so I think that's been the funnest part. My first friend, Susan, she and her husband had come from Spain because he teaches in the university in Spain. And he's he was very interesting, but he was very professor-like. And she was so down to earth. And I'm like, well, this is kind of a contraindication here. But we had a great time with them and shared wine on the porch and all this stuff. And she has twin daughters who live in Portland. And so they were visiting. And so they are in a band called the Double Clicks. Ooh. And so we've been out to the band a few times, and we've been out to some bars, and Susan and I talk on Facebook, and she's been back a couple times and stayed with us a couple more times.
That's what I was thinking. People who have family in the area will return.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and what was really fun was when we had to do the permitting process where you go around and tell everybody you're doing Airbnb. Everybody was so supportive.
Oh, good.
And we have hosted families from every house around us.
That's
and
awesome.
People across the street. We had a teacher friend. Her 89-year-old father came and stayed with us. And we were never so glad that we just installed that banister on the landing.
Yeah. So, what was my first thought? Were the steps for someone almost 90.
I know.
Ooh.
Yeah. So making friends, having fun, and we really Fred and I have been in Portland. He's been here 37 years. I've been 34. So we can really share a lot of the changes. We can share a lot of the politics, the history, what we like. So it's like being ambassadors.
It is, yeah.
Plus the area is so pretty. I mean, we live in a really amazing neighborhood, and the people are really nice, and we have alleys. But let's see. So Susan and Stephen were definitely a standout experience, and we get a fair amount of mom and daughters who come, and so that's been very interesting. And we had an artist from New York who was sponsored by Reed College. So we had to learn how to do payment through Reed with Airbnb. So that was a real learning process. Now Airbnb has like a different code and stuff for businesses to pay for. But that he was like our 4th or 5th guest. But he was really interesting. He was writing his doctoral paper, plus he was lecturing all over Portland. And he was the sweetest little guy, and he's like, I have 5 minutes to talk to you, and I really like you, and this is what I'm doing, but now I have to go write my paper before I get up and speak 4 times tomorrow. He was just so sweet. Oh, and Fred was gifted tickets to Dennis Ham's jazz concert at Revolution Hall a couple months ago. It's just people are so sweet.
That's great.
Sweet people.
I agree.
You know, we've only had a couple what I would consider bad guests, but now I know what they look like.
And tell me, is there something that you watch for?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Anybody who complains about the process of booking an appointment or booking a reservation, or who hates the process, who doesn't want to have to use Airbnb, I decline them.
You don't take reservations outside of Airbnb? You take all your reservations through the platform?
Yes. Okay. Simply because Fred and I live a very complicated life, and this is the one area we want simple. So we only host on Airbnb.
So even if someone finds you through your website, you will send them to your Airbnb listing?
Mm-hmm. I tell them that they have to make a listing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It simplifies my life.
Yeah.
And our CPA said that, the more platforms we are on, the more 1099s we have to fill out and quarterly reports. And Fred and I were like, no, we get enough business from Airbnb. I'm blocking days just to have a break.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you have a minimum?
2 nights.
Okay.
During the winter last year, we did 1 nights because we got nervous. Mm-hmm. And we also have an air mattress, so we opened up the big room to 3 people. Never do that again. We got partiers.
It's always interesting to me that partiers will come into someone's home. So what was that like?
They'd arrive home drunk at 2:30 in the morning, and then they'd giggle and laugh, and I'd be texting them saying, we're right next door and we're up at 6:30 tomorrow morning.
That's different. I was thinking that you were referring to people actually trying to have a party in your home.
No. And we've had a few. We had one guest a couple of months ago who showed up extremely drunk, and then every night he came home drunk.
Oh dear.
Yeah, he was a very interesting writer, but he definitely had a problem. But for the most part, we haven't had any real trouble. Mm-hmm. Someone has broken 1 vase. So we're extremely fortunate. I think it helps that we're so communicative and tell people our expectations that this is a quiet household between 10:30 and 6:30. Mm-hmm. And we have a policy. I wrote this one fellow this morning. He said, well, we're coming in at 11:30 on a Friday night, but we don't anticipate being there till 1. Is that a problem? And I said, well, here are the 4 things you'll have to do. Take your shoes off, leave big bulky luggage downstairs, don't shower after your flight, and turn your lights off as soon as you can. Because all the bedrooms are on the same floor, and the other room is booked, and we need to have consideration for not only us, but for the other guests and for yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I sent that before I accepted his reservation request. And he wrote back, yeah, that's fine.
Do you obviously don't have Instant Book. You don't use Instant Book.
Yeah.
You do use Instant Book?
We do.
And you can interact with the guests like that before you accept reservations?
My experience with Instant Book is people read the profiles better with Instant Book, so that they know what they're getting themselves into. I've never had that come up, interestingly enough.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how were you able to interact with him before you accepted his reservation? Because Instant Book is like immediate.
This one wasn't Instant Book. This was an inquiry.
Okay.
Yeah, he was concerned. He had sent a reservation request, and then he sent me another message saying, hey, I can book an Econoline motel for 1 night. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, that's fine, but, if you want to come, here are the 4 things you have to do. Mm-hmm. And people are very, very respectful, except for the partiers.
Good.
And so we learned our lesson that we'd prefer to be empty and dead than awakened in the middle of the night and angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good.
So there is a learning curve with this. But I love Airbnb. I tell everybody to travel with Airbnb.
And when you travel with Airbnb?
We travel with Airbnb.
Okay.
Fred has a band, God's Condition.
Oh.
And he plays jazz music. He's a saxophonist.
Oh, wonderful.
And so he has a gig Thursday night. So our guests from Austin were like, can we come? So we try to include people in everything that we do.
Oh, that's nice.
Sometimes I have laughter yoga here. Sometimes I have clients. I have privacy screens that I can put up for my clients. It hasn't been a problem so far. I've got guests coming in September who want Reiki and coaching sessions. So kind of my other businesses are starting to fill out because of this. And I've done a couple classes for new hosts, the top 10 tips for successful Airbnb hosting.
Okay, all right.
And I've done some consultations at people's homes about their Airbnb and what to do and what to expect, and phone consults, answering questions for prospective new hosts. 15 minutes for free. There's so many people who want to host, but I found that I was just spending too much time on the phone. So I'm like, I can give you 15 minutes of my time. But so that's kind of exciting.
Yeah. So is it okay to talk about some of your other work? Because I find that fascinating. And what is a divorce
resilience coach?
Divorce resilience coaching. Yes, what is that? What do you do?
So what I do is I help women bounce back into a better than ever life after divorce. And so I do that with coaching, which involves a lot of communication skills, self-discovery, self-confidence building, self-esteem building, visioning what they want for their new life. It can be a short thing, like a couple hours, or it can be a day-long thing, or it can be weekly phone calls with action steps.
So one-on-one, then?
For now.
You anticipate doing some group too?
I've been a teacher.
Okay.
My whole life I taught childbirth classes, parenting classes. I teach Reiki, I teach soul collage, laughter yoga, so I love to teach. I have a workshop called Bring Joy Out to Play.
Oh, I like that.
And so that involves laughter yoga, some coaching, and some soul collage. And soul collage is an art process for self-discovery. It's based on a Jungian concept of the many selves that we have within ourselves and how they are both positive. They're both for us, and then they can also be kind of against us or shadow-like. And then we just learn to utilize that shadow.
Cool. And do you ever have guests who want to participate in something like this? Really? And how do you do that? How do you incorporate that with them?
Well, a couple guests, I already had a workshop planned, and they were local guests. They had just moved to the area. They had stayed with us to find an apartment or waiting for their apartment to be finished so that they could move in. So after the fact, they had enrolled and they came to the class that way.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So then to go back to the Airbnb thing, you have the 2 bedrooms, both with queen beds?
Yes.
Do you normally take a family that has more than 2 people to fill both of the rooms, or do you rent them separately? How does that work for you?
We rent them separately for now.
So then right now you do them separately?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And do you have any idea of what your percentage is as far as your booking on an annual basis or a monthly basis, or
as much as we want?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can either be 100% full or 50% full or whatever
we want. Yeah.
And do you monitor that pretty carefully? I mean, do you look at your schedule to see what your plans are and then book accordingly? So you have to know pretty far in advance what you're going to do.
Yes and no. I have a younger son, and so we had to reschedule our vacation. So he's going to reschedule his work so that he can stay here to host. Because what I learned from last summer was it does not work to be really full and not have someone here. Guests really don't like that very well, and our reviews changed dramatically when we weren't here.
So you went on vacation, you continued to rent the rooms while you were gone. And that was not a problem for you emotionally to have your stuff without you?
No, Fred and I are very loose and free about our stuff. We don't have a whole lot of attachment, nor do we have a whole lot of stuff that's worth a ton of money. So we're not necessarily worried about that. We're more worried about the house and people having the experience they want. We were having a lot of people from Japan last summer.
Really?
And they had a very difficult time understanding the language to get the door unlocked. And they did not realize they had to use the doorknob after using the code.
Right.
And so we got several I wouldn't say poor reviews, but less than what we wanted because of that. And after that, I just made sure that my son was here to greet them, show them the house if he was unable to stay here.
Did you do anything special to get people from Japan, non-English speaking people, to stay at your home?
No.
I would have always wondered about that because I know we have a large influx of Japanese speaking people, and the Chinese now are doing more and more traveling, and I understand we've got huge cultural differences, but so I've been thinking, well, maybe we should have some kind of a class or workshop on bridging some of those cultural gaps. How do you speak to them? How do you communicate? I haven't had any Japanese guests, so how do you do that?
Charades.
Really? Sign language.
Yeah, that works really well for just about everybody. And then on the Airbnb Messenger, there's Google Translator. So if we are having real problems, then we just type out the message and send it to them, and then Google will translate it.
Airbnb has a
Google
message translator on their site?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, I haven't had to use anything like that, so I haven't noticed it.
Yeah.
No. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I can show it to you.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Yeah. So we use that a fair amount. But no, we really haven't done anything to attract. We have our own website, so that might be part of it. And
do you market your website?
Sort of, yes. Not very much.
Okay.
But it is fairly high when you look in Google and you put in bed and breakfast in Portland. We're on the first page. If not the top of the page, we're on somewhere on the first page of Google search for Portland
and is that
bed and breakfast.
There's no competition, or
no.
Is that because of what you've done?
I think it's because of our website, because Slater House Airbnb.
Do you host it yourself? Do you maintain the website yourself?
Yes.
So actually, I did have a couple more questions. What were they? One is the name of Fred's band.
Oh, Lad's Condition.
Lad's Condition. And what kind of music is it?
It is jazz from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
And is there a specific place that they play that we can tell our guests about?
Well, this week they're playing at Vide Boheme, which is a wine bar on 7th and Southeast Clay at 7. They're playing at 7 p.m., but there's 6 other bands. Ma Fondue is an amazing band, and they do Cuban blues.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, just talking about Ma Fondue gives me chills.
Really? Oh, I'll have to check that out.
And Vide Boheme has salsa lessons on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights. It's one of our favorite places to hear music. So Vide Boheme, and then about 3 times a year we have a house party.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about is your Airbnb classes. How do you do those? How did you get started doing them, and what is your interest focus there?
Let's see. How I got started doing them was because so many people were wanting information, and I do a lot of networking for my business, and so there's a lot of people.
So they see you being successful, and they want to know how you're doing it.
Right. And then I was with my business coach one session. She's like, why don't you start monetizing the other aspects of Airbnb? And so that's why I developed the class. I have handouts. I'm in the process of creating actually a different website for the classes, or a landing page at least for the classes and the consultations. And I enjoy being with people. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy helping people create something fun and unique. And I did not grow up with a lot of furniture in my house, nor did my parents care about decorating. So now I kind of get to play with that a little bit, and I can also, not that I have any formal training or anything, But I can kind of help people play with that and let them see that their space is fine the way it is, or if you tweak this, then it might look a little nicer like that. And then thinking about, well, what type of clients are going to want to come all the way out to Tualatin to a little retreat area on the back side of a park, forest, brainstorming with people. I love to help people brainstorm. So that's kind of how I got started and what I really like about it. How it works is I have people come here. So it is in person. I limit it to 6 people because I like to do a house tour. Mm-hmm. And so as part of the deal, we do a house tour. I greet them just like I greet the guests so that they can see and hear what it is I do. And then we sit down and we have, we find out who's at the table, literally. We do it in here. And whether the prospective hosts, whether they're new to hosting, or they're just gathering information. And then I kind of base a lot of the information on that, what comes out of that. And I have about 3 reprints that we go over. But, the top 10 things, I won't remember all of them off the top of my head, but communication is of utmost value. Knowing who you want in your house, building a profile of your ideal guest is crucial. And I think that's part of the reason we're so successful is because we want conscious, aware, intelligent, healthy people coming into our Airbnb. So I help people, they do a little exercise. So they write out the type of people that they would like to have. Some people don't want any international guests. Some people only want local guests. Some people only want younger guests. Some people only want older guests. Some people don't care. We don't care. It's fun having young people in the house. Their energy is so great. Mm-hmm. Let's see. And we talk about the pitfalls, some of the experiences and what I've learned through them so that I can help them not make those pitfalls. Mm-hmm. And how to deal with the money. Deciding how much you want to rent out your house. Are you an introvert? Do you need to block time? A lot of people are just worried about how much money they can make. And I said, it's really, the money's nice, but there's a lot more to it than that. Mm-hmm. So if you're just looking at the money, you're only looking at half the picture here. So I try to instill that pretty heavily because people get so excited about the money. But it is work. And I did not realize how adding a second room would add to my workload. Mm-hmm. Keeping track of the different reservations. I have the online reservation calendars, and then I have a hard copy so I can look at a glance. Mm-hmm. Who's here? When are they leaving? So that I know whether we can, go out of town, or whether we have to clean a room before we go out of town, mm-hmm. or whether I'm going to call my son to come and clean the room so we can go out of town, or whether we're not going out of town. Mm-hmm. So this has been really helpful. So I introduced them to both ways to calendar. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, people just have, I reserve a good half hour, 45 minutes. I mean, it's a 2.5 hour class. And I reserve about 45 minutes for questions. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times people are just popping up with questions, and the teacher and me kind of had to say, we have to put that in the parking lot for now. And some people don't prefer that style, but otherwise we don't get through the material.
Right. Yeah. Do you do site inspections too?
I wouldn't say site inspections. I go and take a look and see what they have, and then they ask me what I think mm-hmm. and how much to charge. And I always say, start low but not too low. Mm-hmm. And so this one gal that I did out in Tualatin, I said, you might want to start around 65. And because she's like, what? I was thinking 100. And I said, you want positive reviews. You want reviews. And if you put your property too high to start with, people aren't going to give you positive reviews because the value may not be what they think it is.
Not only that, but if you build the reviews, then the value builds and you get more business.
The more reviews you have. And I think that's part of the reason we're booked as much as we want, because our reviews are generally so good. I mean, we have the occasional OCD person who did not like the fact that there was some stuff left in the kitchen sink, or the person who did not tell me that she was not sleeping with the male guest that she brought, so he slept on the floor. So, I mean, there are a few things that I have learned, like notes everywhere. You know, if you need something, ask. And I emphasize that in the training, too, is people really want a concierge. Most people don't want to be left by themselves. Now, if you have an ADU or a separate entrance, then those people tend to be...
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Tend to be left by themselves. But when they come into a home situation, they're really anticipating interaction.
And they want their hands held.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm the same way, and I will book based on that. If I'm going to a place that I feel intimidated in, like we went to Paris last year, I thought, I don't speak the language. I've never been to Europe. I need to stay with someone that will hold my hand and make sure that I don't get lost, you know?
Right.
And so that's what we did, and we were able to filter with a Superhost filter and found some amazing people. So I really get that part of that, but if I'm in the States and comfortable, I'll be separate.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it all depends on what you're looking for, and the savvy Airbnb host knows how to do that. Excuse me, the guest knows what they want.
Yeah, we get more and more people who are not newbies. So it's kind of rare to be getting inquiries right now because most people just instant book.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
So what I figure is they're coming from the website because I have the Airbnb badges on my website, and so then they know that they have to fill out a profile.
I see.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I go into Google and I keep a rough tracking of my analytics on the website. So
we're still getting a lot of brand new people to Airbnb. I think it's growing just amazingly. And I know that there are more and more hosts coming on board too. How do you get your hosts? How do you get your business?
Sorry?
The people that you have the class, that you teach the class for, how do you get your students?
I made an event page on Facebook, and most of it's personal referral. Everybody I had come the first time was all personal referral. And the second time, it was people who had heard from somebody. I didn't know their referral personally, but they had heard. They'd seen the ad, and then they'd call me.
Wonderful. That's very cool. Is that still active, your event page?
No, I don't have a class scheduled. I'm going to wait till
you do it every time that you schedule a class?
Yeah,
is that what you do?
You have to make a new event page on Facebook.
Okay, I haven't done that. So.
Yeah, and
let me know when you do that.
I will. Yeah, I'll post it on our Facebook page.
Good.
Slightly intimidated to do so, but simply because I know people like Kathy Peterman, and I know I probably should up my game a little bit, but we're doing really good. So other people might have other ideas.
Oh my goodness!
Of what
and
mine.
There is so much business out there, Kim. There's enough for everybody. I mean, do it because your style is going to be different than Kathy's, different than mine, different than anybody else's, and your networking capabilities are huge, obviously. So definitely do it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We had guests from Amsterdam last week, and they came back. They're flying home tonight, and so they had asked me to find them an Airbnb. And so I posted it on the...
I loved that you posted it on the Facebook group.
Yeah.
That was great.
I think the other two people were a little annoyed with me, but Jill responded first, so...
I don't think anybody was annoyed. The fact that it worked is awesome. I mean, that's why I wanted to have that Facebook page, because not only because our communication is so great, but sharing guests is really wonderful. It's great for the platform. It's great for us. It's great for our guests. So if there's a little competition in between us for certain people, oh wow, it's all right. So
okay.
That's neat that they got a room.
Oh yeah,
they got a place to
they
stay.
were very, very happy.
Is there anything else that you want people to know?
Other than the fact that we love doing it, we love sharing our home, we love meeting people. I'm actually promoting the guests' tea website on my Facebook page. So
I'm not familiar with that.
We had a guest last week from Colorado, and they have Novella Tea Company, and so I'm promoting their website,
their
on
product.
Facebook.
I see.
And so I think that's a little more of what I want to get into, is so many people that come through here doing amazing things. Mm-hmm. And we get a magazine called High Country from a gentleman who stayed with us last year, who's all about energy conservation in Wyoming and Colorado. There's people who come through here with nonprofits that I'd love to be able to support. So I'm still kind of noodling that idea. How can I support our guests in their business or in their ventures or in their dreams? So I'm still kind of sitting with that to kind of figure that one out. But I think that is another part of the shared economy piece that we're not kind of utilizing at this point, and our relationship with our guests.
Well, thank you very much for the interview. I really appreciate talking with you. I can see why you're a super host. You have a lot of warmth and a lot of interest, and you just sort of glow with it. It's neat.
Thank you.
It's neat.
Well, thanks for coming, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to share what I love.
My pleasure. Boy, I had a lot of takeaways from this episode. Kim talks about some things that are really important, and I loved her discussion about her personal profile, and that by giving attention to your own bio, talk about what you like and what your experiences are, the different kinds of jobs maybe that you've had in the past, actually not only gives the guests more information about you, but also draws people of those same interests to you. The issue of having a website is also really important. She gives a lot of credence to her full calendar by having that website, saying that she thinks that a lot of guests come to her website first before they see her listing on Airbnb. Also, the other thing I got from this episode is that if you share your living space with guests, make sure that your guests are going to be taken care of if you're not there. It hadn't occurred to me before, but Kim makes a really good point in that when her Japanese guests were there, they needed to have someone there who could interpret for them and teach them how to get along in the city. And the other thing that I got is share what you know. She just does a wonderful job of inviting her guests to their musical events and asking them if they're interested in taking any of her classes and participating in her life to an extent that they might be interested in. Really, really good interview, Kim. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everybody for being here. Now, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we want to give you contact information. We want you to know that you can find us on iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher, all of those podcast programs that you can download our show from, and you can also find us at our website at hostingyourhome.com. So my email address is debbie@hostingyourhome.com, and I would love to hear from you if you would like to be on the show, if you know of somebody that you'd like for me to interview, or if you have a specific topic that you'd like for us to discuss. Now stay with us if you want to go through the tour of the house. That'll be coming up next. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye. If we just do a little kind of, informal walkabout, whatever you can show me is great. And if there are some places you can't show me, I totally understand that too.
Yeah, I got permission from the guests in the main room to.
Oh, great!
They said they'd tidy, so we'll see if that happened.
We're not taking pictures, so that's okay.
Okay, all right. So you want to start at the front door?
So first of all, the house itself is old, right?
Yeah.
How old is it?
Let's see, 1910.
And it's the Slater house because
George Slater lived here.
George Slater
And
is.
we get two different stories. One says he was a logger, and another person or another account says he was quite infamous.
Oh.
So we're not exactly sure. But Fred's been here for 26 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And is this Craftsman style? Is that what it is?
It's a Foursquare.
Okay.
Yeah, we were actually featured.
This old house.
Yes,
the magazine.
The magazine. We didn't know it. They did a thing on Ladd's Edition and bungalows, craftsman's, and Foursquares. And so we learned that it was a Foursquare, not a craftsman. So that was kind of interesting.
So talk to me about Ladd's Edition. I've heard of it. This is the first time I've actually been here, and I don't have much of a concept for what I just went through. So maybe you can help me understand that.
And so Ladd's Edition was bought by this fellow Ladd after he had gone to Washington, D.C., and he'd seen this pattern. And so they started building around 1905. And so there's 4 cardinal rose gardens. So we have the West Garden right here, which is a half a block away.
Okay. So you've got basically an X there of houses, and then in between each X is a rose garden.
Mm-hmm. And so each cardinal direction, so west, east, south, and north. And then in the middle here is Ladd's Circle. So if we go down Mulberry, we'll run into Ladd's Circle. And it literally is a circle. It's a one-way circle. And Paleo's Coffee House is on the other side. Monday and Wednesday nights, they have, during the summer and fall, they have banjo.
Oh.
Sing-alongs and things. And now...
So that looks like a green area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty big green area. And all the rose gardens are maintained half by the city and half by PFLAG, which is Portland Friends of Ladd's Edition Gardens.
Okay.
And so we donate money. Some people work. Some people actually buy a rose plot and then they take care of it themselves.
Oh. So you have how many bedrooms and bathrooms? What is your setup for your Airbnb and your living space here?
So the bedrooms, we have 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. So our bedroom is the master bedroom, and we have our own bath in there. Mm-hmm. And then we have 3 other rooms, 2 of which are Airbnb rooms. Mm-hmm. We're in the process of moving Fred downstairs so that we can turn a 3rd room and potentially go the bed and breakfast route. Oh. So that's kind of the goal, so that I can make a reservation calendar for 2 rooms because we're getting requests for families and friends.
Yes.
So that's kind of the overall plan. And then we have a half bathroom down here. And then we are plumbed for another bathroom in the basement, but we haven't developed the basement at all.
So 3 stories?
4.
4 stories. Okay.
Basement, main, second, and attic.
Okay.
And the attic and the basement are not really developed at this point.
Okay.
We're trying to decide how much longer we want to stay in the house and whether we want to put the money into it.
Right, I can understand that.
And so the guests have access to this area. I put in the listing that this is kind of my work, my office area. It's not 100% tidy, but they don't seem to have...
No, people don't care. You share the entrance, and there's a lovely porch, too.
Oh, yeah, and they can be on the back porch.
Oh, so they can just go through the kitchen and not even bother you in the other room when you're working, right? Oh, very nice. It's pretty.
So Fred's my gardener.
Oh, is he?
We can go
Look
out.
at those sunflowers! Wow, a little vegetable plot.
Yep. I came onto the scene 8 years ago, newlyweds, sort of.
And you are the Airbnb queen?
I am.
Yes.
Yeah, this is my job. So he gardens to kind of as stress relief. Mm-hmm. And yeah, plus we get lots of good food.
Yeah, that's great. Do you cook for your guests?
Sometimes I bake. In the beginning, I baked a lot and would ask people what they wanted to have here. But then they'd go out to breakfast all the time. They'd say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or they'd say, "Oh, we want to cook gourmet meals." I'm like, "Okay, well, bring your own cooler because we don't have a big enough fridge." And then they wouldn't end up either A, cooking or B, eating. So but what we do provide is, we call it a self-serve breakfast. Because that was one of the things that when I've traveled in Europe and all over the United States, and the one thing that bugged me the most about staying in a B&B was the time of breakfast. 9 o'clock is just far too late for me. So we provide, some, pretty much everything's gluten-free. We're a gluten-free household, people know that. And they can use the toaster oven. This is just a sample of some of the fruit we have, and then we have little signs everywhere so people know where things are. And then people are most excited about the tea collection.
Oh, yeah, look at all those teas.
And we had guests last week who have their own tea company, so we've been getting so many gifts lately. It's incredible. And some people, French people from Normandy gave us French caramels. We got a bottle of wine from our new guests who are from Austin.
And you just had people leave from Holland.
Exactly. Yeah. Fred's dairy-free, so we always have oat milk. I have skim milk, and then people have access to the fruit. They can put their leftovers in here. And sometimes we offer beer, but after one of our Airbnb meetings, I decided to stop doing that. I didn't really think about the whole sobriety thing.
Well, people... If it's in your refrigerator, I think that's a lot different than leaving it for people in their own personal refrigerator.
So this is one thing that when we failed our inspection, was because we did not have this.
Oh, really?
So we had to build this.
Okay.
And this was $1,400. And another $800.
It's a nice looking banister.
Well, it's historic. Really? There's half of one up here, so we made it match this one. I'm pretty sure everybody's gone. Yep.
So this is the organ room we're looking at now?
This is the forest room.
Forest room. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, great.
It's also
like a queen bed, right?
Yeah. We got a brand new queen bed. Last year, because of all that heat in June, we got air conditioners for all the bedrooms.
Wonderful.
We didn't have them before. But
have you noticed that your bookings have gone up since you've done that?
No.
Okay.
No, a lot of times people don't even care.
Yeah. Well, people who know the area wouldn't care,
Right. So this is the attic. This is our room, which I won't show you.
Okay.
We allow one area of the house to even see. And then this is the shared bath for the guests.
Okay.
And the second room is the Zen room. And it's probably a real mess because my stepson. But okay. So I won't show you that. But I call it the Zen room. It's all in blue. And it's got Asian.
So these are your two guest rooms right here.
These two.
Oh, the Zen room and the forest room. Okay. All right, great.
And then that one's going to be one. But Fred's got the history of energy conservation in here. So.